Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Rose Writes and I write and narrate Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction. This is another story by the incredibly talented Mike Xeno. All of his info will be linked below, so go check him out. He is an amazing writer. I've also narrated a few of his other stories, so if you want to see those, I will also link those below. And big shout out to the incredibly talented Jade Carol for allowing me to use this amazing picture of Ladybug in my thumbnail. Now, without further ado, please enjoy My Best Friend is Ladybug. If I tell you, things will never be the same between us again. It'll mess up everything! Maybe even destroy it! I had never seen Marinette so terribly distressed. What was this awful secret? What made her feel like she had to lie to hide it at the cost of everything else in her life? I made the only plea I could, trying to make her see that whatever it was, I was there for her to help her take on the burden. Marinette, I am your very best friend. I was about to say more, but then she continued. And She paused and closed her eyes for a moment, as if internally breaking a wall that held in what she wanted to say. Then she turned her face to me, with tears welling in her eyes. Ladybug. I'm not sure what I expected. It definitely wasn't that. In between two heartbeats, my brain scrambled to comprehend the bombshell Marinette had just dropped in my lap. I should have had a dozen questions right off the top. I literally had a list saved on my phone of everything I'd want to say to Ladybug if I ever found out who she really was. But not one of them occurred to me in that moment, because the only thing I could see was my beloved friend who had taken on such a crushing responsibility, sacrificed so much for the greater good, and carried on under the weight of it all with more courage than I had known that any human being could ever bring to bear. And it was tearing her apart. So I hugged her. Perhaps I should have said in that moment that it would be all right, that I was there for her no matter what, that I couldn't imagine how hard it must have been on her to keep this to herself. But none of those words came to me, not yet. All I saw was my friend in agony, and the greater implications of what she had said still hadn't fully kicked in. She didn't need questions, or even reassurances. She needed a hug. I don't know how long we sat like that. Marinette cried into my shoulder, unloading the emotional burden of so many months of leading a double life. I held her and let her cry. And as I did, my mind tossed this flabbergasting piece of information around in a valiant effort to make sense of it. Marinette, my best friend, was a superhero. She was Ladybug. I pictured the two of them side by side, and all at once something flip-flopped in my head. It was as if I'd been staring at an optical illusion without even knowing it was there. And then suddenly seeing the trick behind it, and realizing I'd been looking at it all wrong. Without actually changing in any way, my mental image of Ladybug appeared just like Marinette wearing a mask. It was so blatantly obvious. I couldn't fathom how I had never seen it before. They looked exactly alike. How had I missed that? How did anyone fail to see it? There was no denying the truth of it, and I realized it had never even occurred to me to question what she had revealed. In the exact same instant that Marinette had said those words, I am Ladybug, I had accepted it as fact. She might as well have said, I have blue eyes. She seemed to be just about cried out, when Marinette pulled away, sniffing and blinking her red and swollen eyes. I knew what I needed to say to her first. It wasn't any of the things on my list, because I had never considered that Ladybug might be her. Ladybug, I said, I'm still your very best friend. That set off Marinette's waterworks again, and we hugged for at least another full minute. It was about then when I realized we weren't alone. Far from it. All around us, hovering in the air, were at least a dozen tiny creatures who looked down upon us with varying emotions. Concern, uncertainty, trepidation, and in one case, relief. That one was the Ladybug. I had never seen her before. But of course, she was Marinette's Kwami. I gave her a smile and a nod, letting her know that her feelings were justified. Things were going to be better for Marinette from now on. I would see to that. My eyes were caught by emotion to the Ladybug's left. It was Trix. I sent a wink in his direction, and then he smiled too. The others, the ones who had looked anxious, seemed to relax slightly as they understood that this was a good thing. Their secret would be safe with me. There was nothing to fear. Oh, wow, Marinette blubbered once she had collected herself enough to speak and pull away again. I didn't know how much I needed that. If you need it some more, the other shoulder's still dry. I offered. No, I'm okay now. She sniffled. I guess I have a little more explaining to do. You've got all the time you need, I assured her. Tell me everything now, or if you want to just pretend for an hour that you didn't say anything world-shattering, we'll go get some tea and talk about the weather. Whatever works for you. You're taking this awfully well. Oh, don't get me wrong, I said, smirking. On the inside, I'm geeking out like you wouldn't believe. But first things first. She laughed, the self-conscious and sobbing sigh that people do when they've finished with a good hard cry. As if they shouldn't be laughing so soon after that, but can't help it. So, what is the first thing? It felt strange seeing Marinette looking so helpless and dependent, like a child asking for permission to speak. Especially since I could see her now as the ultimately strong and confident savior of Paris. Well, the first thing is that you need to know that you're right. Things are going to change between us. But it's all going to be for the better, Marinette. You don't need to hide this from me anymore, and I can help you in all kinds of ways. You need a quick distraction so you can transform and go fight evil? I'll take care of it. You need an excuse for coming home late? I've got your back. And if anyone starts to figure out your secret, I happen to know someone who can make everyone see you and Ladybug together at the same time. I beckoned to Trix and he flew over my shoulder, bowing slightly to Marinette. Oh God, I can't begin to tell you what a relief all this is, Marinette gushed. Second thing, I continued, is that I believe introductions are in order. I indicated with a sweep of my hand to the other Kwamis gathered all around. Oh, of course! Marinette exclaimed, then jumped up and started calling them down one by one. I feared that at least a few of them would be concerned over what must have been a pretty severe breach of the rules, what with Marinette telling me her secret, but they all seemed thrilled. I gathered that they didn't get to talk to new people very often. Waze was kind enough to ask after Nino, and it pleased him to hear that he was doing well. And this is Tiki, Marinette said, having saved Ladybug's Kwami for last. I'm so happy to finally be able to meet you, Alya. Tiki gushed, flying in to hug my cheek. She was so adorable, I couldn't help but blush slightly. Although I feel like I've known you as long as I've known Marinette. I'm usually in her purse, so I've been there almost every time you hang out together. She's so lucky to have a friend like you. Now I really felt my cheeks flush. Well, I guess you would be the expert on luck, I said, trying to keep the sudden surge of emotion out of my voice. I wasn't sure why Tiki's compliment meant so much to me. Perhaps there was some way in which I perceived the incredibly old and wise being within this cute-as-a-button form. Okay, so you've met the whole crew, except for Plag, of course, Marinette said, and then her face fell. And Nuru, and Dusu. Shadowmoth has them. Plag is Cat Noir's Kwami? I asked. I assumed, of course, that the others she mentioned were the Kwamis of the butterfly and the peacock, but there would be time to discuss that later. For now, I felt it was best to stick to more positive topics. Uh-huh, Marinette replied. And before you ask, I don't have any idea who Cat Noir really is. I thought about Cat Noir. It seemed to me that if it was now so clear who Ladybug was, then I should be able to see right through Cat Noir's mask, assuming he was someone I knew. But as I ran through all the boys I knew and compared them to the Black Cat, I simply couldn't match his face with any of them. Ladybug, well, Marinette, of course, had told me once in a Ladybug interview that the masks were magical and prevented one's identity from being known, even by those who were close friends and family. And he had clearly been right. Of course, I had seen through Nino's disguise, but he'd kind of made it obvious. And I had only recognized him by his word choice, mannerisms, and the way he acted towards me. Thinking back, I realized that if I had gone on appearance alone, I would have never seen it. I'm pretty sure we don't know his alter ego personally, Marinette said, able to perceive what I'd been doing. I mean, there have to be about 100,000 teenage boys in Paris, and we know a couple dozen of them. Pretty long odds. Well, all the other Miraculous holders are people we know personally. Of course they are. I'm the one who gave them their Miraculous jewels. Something I feel like I've never properly thanked you for, by the way, I said, taking one of her hands in both of mine. I had no idea why Ladybug picked me to be Rena Rouge at the time. Now I know that it's because you had complete trust in me, even back then. That means a lot to me. It means even more now. Don't make me start crying again, Marinette pleaded. Sorry, but anyway, I'm guessing it was the previous guardian who gave you your Miraculous, right? And he gave one to Cat Noir, too. So, why wouldn't you know each other? It's not like I knew Master Fu at the time. I didn't even meet him until I'd been Ladybug for months. Master Fu? That was his name? Marinette looked startled, then guilty, then relaxed. She clearly wasn't used to being able to talk about this with anyone. Yes, she said. He passed on the guardianship to me, because he had to. It was the only way to keep Hawkmoth from getting the miracle box. That's, where all the jewels are kept, and where the Kwamis live when they're not buzzing around my room like this. And when he renounced the guardianship, it made him lose his memory, going all the way back to when he first became the guardian. He didn't know me anymore. She had already shed all the tears she could, but I could tell she would be if she had any left. Marinette took a deep breath before continuing. So, do you think all our other friends are okay? She asked in a small voice. I still can't tell them, you know that. I'm sorry that I hurt everyone's feelings, even to the point where I got you all akumatized. I know they said we're all right now, but I'm still going to have to lie to them sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you no one was upset, I said, putting a hand on her shoulder. But come on, Marinette. I might be the most recent addition to this little group, but I could tell right from moment one that you're the heart of the circle of friends. You're going to have to do better than that to get rid of us. I asked you not to make me cry again. She sniffled. Look, if it's cool with you, I'll tell them that you let me in on what's going on with you, and that I can't tell anyone, but that it makes total sense, and you're going to be okay. That'll at least let them know that they don't need to pry. Sounds good? Sounds great. Really, really great, Alya. She reached out for another hug, and I gave it back. Okay, I said once I could look Marinette in the eye again. So you're feeling better now? No more unbearable angst? No more concerns that this is going to ruin everything? I'm good. Better than good. I'm so glad you're my BFF. That's what I do best, I replied. So now with all that out of the way, I apologize in advance for this, but it really has to be done. I stood up, removed my glasses, and placed them carefully on Marinette's desk. and then turned to face her, clearing my throat softly. Alya, what are you? Oh my god, my best friend is Ladybug! I squealed, jumping up and down and clapping my hands together. This is just so amazingly cool. Oh, you have to tell me everything. What's it like being the greatest living hero in Paris? Can you make anything you want with your lucky charm? I have 1,000 questions. Do you think you and Cat Noir will ever hook up? Who's going to get the next Miraculous? Oh, I want to see your transformation. Can you show me? Do you think Joan of Arc was a ladybug? Stop laughing! You can't imagine how much I've looked forward to this moment! She didn't stop laughing. Not for the next 5 minutes, until I finally ran out of fangirl steam. And we just collapsed and lay there for a while, emotionally and physically exhausted. About 10 minutes later, Marinette's mom would appear with a pair of chocolate croissants. And then we just hung out and talked about regular teenager stuff until I finally had to leave. My best friend is Ladybug. But that doesn't matter, not really. My best friend is Marinette. And that matters. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give this video a big like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out Mike Xeno, links below. And as always, stay miraculous!